We're just now getting the Nielsen numbers in for the premiere episodes for Skeleton Crew, the latest Disney Plus Star Wars series, and it's not good. According to this article from Cosmic Book News, Skeleton Crew has worse Star Wars ratings on Disney Plus, lower than The Acolyte, which that's saying a lot considering how hated The Acolyte was by a majority of the Star Wars fan base. And then when you consider Skeleton Crew, it's not really badly received. People who've watched it think it's generally an okay show, or not a good show, but still the viewership just isn't there for that. So let's dive into this article right here to kind of talks about like what the numbers actually are for this, just how bad things are going for it. And I'll give you my thoughts on what I think this means for the future of Star Wars and Disney. The Nielsen ratings for the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew are in, revealing that they are worse than The Acolyte, worse than Andor, and seemingly the worst Star Wars ratings on Disney Plus. Now that's saying an awful lot, and it's also bad when you consider how much they spent on this. Now, I don't think they spent more on this than they did for Andor or The Acolyte. That's one of the big problems with The Acolyte, is how low the viewership numbers were for that, considering that was the most expensive Disney Plus Star Wars show. This one, I think this actually comes a little bit less than Andor, so it'd be around the 3rd most expensive Disney Plus Star Wars show. So quite a lot they're spending on it, and the viewership just isn't there. Skeleton Crew is also the first Star Wars show not to have its premiere make the Nielsen ratings, which are automatically turned on in your Disney Plus accounts. Samba TV has also again refused to publish numbers. Samba TV hasn't published ratings for a majority of the recent Star Wars or Marvel shows, likely at the request of Disney, who is an investor in the company, as obviously the ratings are in the gutter. Now, I don't like the idea that they can just invest in a company and tell them not to report on their ratings if that is in fact what they're doing with this, because when you have a publicly traded company like Disney, I think they have an obligation to the shareholders to report the actual viewership numbers so they can make a better informed decision on whether or not to invest in the company. I guess you could make the argument that them not reporting the numbers is an admission that the numbers are bad, but we don't know what we don't know. So, I mean, I guess you can make that inference with that information right there, and investors can also make that inference on there, but still, I just prefer more transparency over less transparency or assumptions. Particularly alarming is that Skeleton Crew premiered its first 2 episodes on the same night, yet still failed to appear in the Nielsen ratings despite having an entire week to qualify. And you can see the numbers that they have right here for that week, December 2nd through December 8th. Nielsen released its ratings for the week December 2nd through December 8th. Okay, so it does say it. Covering the premiere of the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew on December 2nd. However, the show failed to make the list. Now, that is an important takeaway from all this, because if Skeleton Crew, let's say, premiered on the 7th, then they only had a couple days to chart on Nielsen before the next reporting period. So it'd be a little bit more understandable if they didn't actually appear for that reporting period. But since they actually premiered on December 2nd, that suggests that the viewership was just so, I mean, they had a whole week to get on there and they couldn't even get enough people to watch it during that week to actually break the top 10. The Great British Baking Show apparently is the number 10 on there with 382 million minutes watched. So that's what they lost out to, what kept them off of the top 10 list. Or actually, I don't know where they place on this. This only shows the top 10. Maybe they would have been lower. Maybe there's other things above it, but still, this is not good for Disney Plus Star Wars. The bottom spot on Nielsen's streaming originals list belongs to the Great British Baking Show with 382 million minutes viewed. Since Skeleton Crew didn't make the list, its total viewership was below 382 million minutes, meaning the average per episode was under 191 million minutes because it was 2 episodes, just divided in half. The Acolyte also premiered its first 2 episodes in one night and made the Nielsen ratings with 488 million minutes viewed, averaging 244 million per episode. Andor premiered with its first 3 episodes and made the list with 624 million minutes, averaging 208 million per episode. Again, the 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew averaging lower than 191, falling short of both the Acolyte and Andor. So I think it is safe to say that this is the worst rated or worst viewed Disney Plus Star Wars show. And like I said, this is despite the fact that it's a lot better received than what we saw with the Acolyte. So pretty much the question is, what's going wrong with it? They try to address that a little bit in this article. So what happened? Why didn't fans tune in to watch Skeleton Crew? It's from Spider-Man director John Watts, so you'd think it would be at least be decent, right? The answer seems clear. Fans just aren't interested after Disney's handling of Star Wars sequel trilogy and Disney Plus shows like The Acolyte, The Book of Boba Fett, and The Mandalorian Season 3. It seems many fans have simply stopped caring about Star Wars. And I think there is a lot of truth to that. I mean, this isn't fan hatred or anything like that. Because that was the thing about The Acolyte. At least a lot of people, the show was so bad that people could hate watch it, or they could watch it to meme on it or make fun of it or otherwise mock it. But with this show, it doesn't seem like there's any of that. It just seems like it's kind of a middle of the road show where there's nothing egregiously bad about it, but there's also nothing fantastic about it. It's just an overall fine show, which isn't a bad thing as far as making a show goes, but it's nothing interesting. And if you're trying to drive out audiences and big numbers, you don't want to make something that's just okay. You need to make something that's fantastic. And apparently this just isn't it. And if you had a good, strong brand, like what Star Wars used to be when Disney paid billions of dollars to acquire it, then I think that would be enough to make a show like this a hit. Because even though I do like season 1 of The Mandalorian, I mean, let's be real, that wasn't necessarily like a groundbreaking show. It wasn't fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. It was just a decent show. And at the time, Disney, they didn't have the greatest Star Wars brand, but it was something that was decent enough. And I think people were hungry for something after The Last Jedi, but apparently that's not the case anymore. People just got tired of Disney Star Wars, and this is the clear result of this. If this show came out, I don't know, is kind of with the launch of Disney Plus, if it came out around the time that The Mandalorian did, I think it would have gotten a lot more bigger viewers. But as it stands right now, Star Wars is a damaged brand, so people just aren't going to give it the benefit of the doubt, or they just don't care enough to actually get invested in anything Star Wars right now. Now, a divided fan base isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some fans love it, others hate it, but even the haters will still watch. The real problem arises when fans stop caring. When that happens, they stop watching, and just as crucially, they stop spending their money. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now when it comes to anything Disney Star Wars related. Now, what's the solution of it? I don't think it's going to be an easy one. I think the biggest thing right now is Disney needs to spend less money on a lot of their properties, because as we can see, the fan base just isn't there for it. If they would have made this for a significantly less budget, like if this would have been the cheapest Star Wars show that they've made, like I'm thinking like in the $50 million range, then I think it would be considered a success for them. But I don't know if they would be able to do that, or they probably could. They just don't know how to make stuff like that for the cheap. But then I think you could find some success in it. And that's something they really need to do, because when you wind back the clock, Disney spent billions of dollars to acquire their IP because it has a huge built-in fan base. Well, they no longer have that built-in fan base that's going to guarantee everything they put out is going to be at least moderately successful. So the only solution is to almost treat it as if it's a brand new IP and you have to regain a new fan base. And when you do or create a new IP, you're not going to take any risks by investing a huge amount of money in it. So you have to spend little money and try to build it up slowly over time. And I think if they were to do that, like shelve everything Star Wars related for a good while, at least 5 years or so, and then bring out something at a moderate budget that's supposed to be a general audience's crowd pleaser, that's not pandering to any certain demographics or not pushing any type of agenda that's divisive. If they just made something that's trying to be decent enough and something good Star Wars related, then I think you can start rebuilding the fan base and also maybe bring in some of the people who have since abandoned them kind of back into the fold. But right now, I don't know if Disney is willing to actually do what's necessary in order to actually rebuild their damaged brand right now. The Mandalorian and Grogu, I believe that's wrapped filming, and that's the next big theatrical release, the first theatrical release since Solo, which lost money for them. So we'll see with that, if maybe the idea is people just aren't watching their shows, but they'll watch their movies. So if that's successful, then perhaps they'll just start leaning more into theatrical releases and less heavily on the series. But if that also fails, then I think it is an indicator that Star Wars right now is basically, I want to say it's 100% a dead brand, but it's pretty much on life support at this time. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think there is a possibility of salvaging Star Wars at this time, or do you think there's too much damage to the brand where it'll take an awful lot in order to bring it back? And I'm talking like getting rid of the executives over at Disney and bringing in new people that actually care about Star Wars the way George Lucas used to care about Star Wars? Or is there really no hope for it at this time? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.